factoring x squared plus bx plus c. Factoring is the opposite of the distributive property. The answer to factoring a trinomial in the form x squared plus bx plus c will be the product of two binomials. So when you're factoring, what you have to remember to do is to find factors of c that add or subtract to make b. So here we have the trinomial x squared plus 8x plus 15. This trinomial, when factored, will be the product of two binomials. Looking at this first term, x squared, to split that up among the two parentheses, we would have x and x. So remember, factoring is the opposite of the distributive property. So when we multiply x times x, that would give us x squared. 15 is our c term. So we have to find factors of c that add or subtract to make b. Well, factors of 15, the first one that comes to my mind is 3 and 5. If I add a positive 3 and a positive 5, I do get 8. So we're going to have a plus 3 and a plus 5. And it does not matter which parentheses you put the positive 5 and which one you put the positive 3. R squared plus 11r plus 24. So again, you're going to have two binomials. R squared is going to break down as r and r in each one of the parentheses. So I got to think of factors of 24 that make 11. What comes to my mind is 6 and 4. However, if I add 6 and 4 together, I get 10, not 11. So that's not going to work out. The next thing that comes to mind, 3 and 8. When I add 3 and 8, I do get 11. So again, it's going to be r plus 3 and r plus 8. The order of the parentheses does not matter. Y squared minus 6y plus 8. All right, so break the y squares down into y and y. We've got to find factors of 8 that would give us a negative 6. Factors of 8, 4, and 2. Now if I add 4 and 2 together, I get a positive 6. So my sign is off. Well, I know that a negative times a negative also would make a positive. So a negative 4 times a negative 2 is positive 8, and negative 4 plus negative 2 is negative 6. So negative 4 and negative 2. X squared plus 2x minus 15. Break it down, x and x. So factors of negative 15. Well, I'm going to start just by thinking of 15. 15 is 5 and 3. Now I know my 15 has to be negative, so one of these numbers is going to be positive and one of them is going to be negative. The way I can decide is by looking at the sign of b. b is a positive. So the 5 has to be positive and the 3 has to be negative, because 5 plus negative 3 is a positive 2. So x plus 5 and x minus 3. C squared minus 4c minus 21. So hopefully by now you're getting good at this. Break down the c squares into c and c. So I'm going to think of factors of 21, 3 and 7 come to mind first. And again, the 21 is negative. So one of these numbers has to be negative and one has to be positive. And I decide by looking at the b term, and it's a negative 4. So the 3 is positive and the 7 must be negative, because a 3 plus negative 7 is negative 4. So c plus 3 and c minus 7. R squared minus 13r plus 42. Break down the r's, r and r. Factors of 42 that make 13 would be 6 and 7. And again, a positive 6 and a positive 7 multiplied together do give you 42. However, it also gives you a positive 13, not what we need here. So both the 6 and the 7 have to be negative, because a negative times a negative is positive, and negative 6 plus negative 7 is negative 13. So r minus 6 and r minus 7. Last one, p squared plus 3p minus 40. So break down the p's. And factors of 40, 8 and 5. One must be negative because 40 is negative, and I know it's going to be the 5 that's negative because the 3 is positive, and 8 plus negative 5 is positive 3. So p plus 8 and p minus 5.